Hi guys, I'm Greg Howlett, and I want to talk today again about your 5 chord, the 5 chord that you see in music. Now last time I did a video, I also talked about the 5 chord, and I talked about adding the 7th to your triads. Anytime you see a 5 as a triad, adding the 7th, making it a dominant 7th, and we talked about how that improves your sound. Today I want to take that a step further, and we're going to talk about something that I consider even more impactful in your music. This is probably the starting place when I typically am teaching somebody about reharmonization. And here is the idea in a nutshell. Whenever you run across a 5 chord in a piece of music, what we're going to do is we're going to change it to a progression or a combination of chords. When you see a 5 chord, we're going to play a combination, and the combination is very simply 2-5. Okay, so no more single 5 chords. Now we're going to think a unified combination 2-5 instead. All the 5 chords replaced with 2-5, right? Now the 2 chord, of course, is minor, and if you really want it to sound good, you're going to play a minor 7th. So you play a 2 minor 7th in front of your 5 chords. I guess the simplest way to think of it is when you run across a 5 chord in a piece of music, we're going to find a way to put the 2 in front of it. Now, this is not something that you can overuse. This is a foundational part of modern harmony. If you downloaded the music off my website, you would be hard-pressed to find any occasions where you see a 5 chord that doesn't have a 2 in front of it. I challenge you to go look. You may find 1 or 2, but they will be very, very rare. Just like a duck swims in the water, that's how I look at playing the 2 in front of a 5. It's just what I do. After a lot of years of doing this, it's just become second nature. It greatly improves your music. It improves my music. It should improve your music as well. So let's go through an example here for a few minutes. I'm going to be working with the song I Surrender All. This is my version of I Surrender All. I know you can't see this. I just wrote down the chords. Just a quick note about organizing music, by the way. I Surrender All is a very typical song. It's 16 bars long. Each phrase is 4 bars long. So you have 4 4-bar phrases for a total of 16 bars. So we're going to look at each of the 4 phrases by themselves. We'll start with the first phrase, surprise, surprise. And the first phrase, as you see on the screen, is just simple 1, 4, and 5 chords. If you played it traditionally, this is how it would sound. Not bad, but not that great, right? There's certainly a lot that we can do with this. Now, let's go through and find your 5 chords. There's 2 of them, right? Bar 2 is a 5 chord, and then you see a 5 chord as well in the first half of bar 4. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to change those 5 chords into 2-5 progressions. And what that means essentially is we are going to insert a 2 in front of the 5 and borrow some of the time from the 5. Does that make sense? So for example, in bar 2, we're in 4/4 time. Bar 2 has 4 beats, and instead of playing a 5 chord for all 4 beats, we're essentially going to divide that bar in half and play a 2 chord on the first 2 beats and a 5 chord on the second 2 beats. Now you might ask, Greg, did it have to be divided equally in half? And the answer is no. There's no rule that it has to be divided equally in half, and in a lot of cases I won't divide equally in half. Sometimes it's pretty impossible, especially if you're in maybe 3/4 time. You can imagine how that would get a little squirrely. But in general, it's a good rule of thumb to divide the bar or the amount of the 5 chord, the time of the 5 chord, just divide it in half. Give the first half to the 2 chord, second half to the 5 chord. Always in that order, by the way. And here is how it would sound. 2, 5. Okay, so first way is this. Okay, that's the first way. Here's the second way. Okay, so you hear a couple of things happening there that improve the sound. Number one, you hear the introduction of a minor 2 chord. The minor chord is a different sound in the palette or the harmonic palette of the song. And so getting that minor 2 in there is good because all the other chords around it are just major chords. So we like doing that. The second thing that we're getting bang for the buck from this in is the fact that now we have more chords and more movement, more harmonic movement in the song. Rather than just hanging out on that 5 chord for 4 beats, now we have chords moving in two beats each. And so you have a harmonic sound that is progressing rather than just staying stagnant. So that's an improvement. Now, the next 5 chord is at the end of that bar, or the end of that phrase in bar 4. Here, notice that it is only 2 beats long. So it's the first half of bar 4, 2 beats. So we're going to take those 2 beats and divide it in half. And I haven't been in math in a long time, but I think that means each chord is going to get 1 beat. So we're going to play a 2 chord on the first beat, a 5 chord on the second beat. All right, here's how it would sound. I'll play the whole line. Okay, nice little sound there. And there is the first phrase. 2 5 chords, and we changed both of them into 2 5 progressions. Now, the nice thing about looking at music in this sort of orderly way is you start to see patterns, and the second line is exactly like the first line, so we're not going to talk about the second line. Second phrase and the first phrase are the same. So bars 5 through 8 we're going to ignore for the moment. Let's move on to bar 9, which is phrase 3. And in phrase 3, notice that we have a 5 chord, and it lasts 2 bars. So that's a total of 8 beats. Now, there's a couple things we could do here, but I think the most effective thing probably in this case is just to change the entire bar 10, that's bar 10, the second bar that you see, change that entire bar to a 2 chord, and then we're going to leave bar 11 alone as a 5 chord. So essentially we've taken 8 beats and we divided into 4 beats of a 2 chord, 4 beats of a 5. Okay? And that is all we have to do with this line. Here's how it would sound. Okay, so you hear that again. 2, 5. By the way, one thing you might hear me doing, and this has nothing to do with the video, but in the second half of bar 11, you might hear me moving the bass down to G. It's creating an inversion. I'm essentially playing an A chord over G. G is the 7th of an A7 chord. So it's a third inversion, A7, for those of you that have been in music theory. But that's all we're doing on line 3, or phrase 3. The last line, we have only 1 5 chord as well, and it occurs at the last half of bar 15, the second to the last bar of the song. And notice that it's only 2 beats long. So we're going to play the 1 over 5 for beats 1 and 2, and then beat 3 we're going to play a 2 chord, beat 4 we're going to play a 5. Okay, so here's how that sounds. 2 5 1. Okay, so that is it. Now, this is not something that I had to find a song that this would work with. It's the first song I thought about. You could do this with any song that has 5 chords in it. There's one rule. There's one overriding rule. The 2 chord that you use has to work with the melody. There are times where you have to sort of wiggle these chords around a little bit to make them sound good with the melody. Sometimes just using a 2 chord with the melody may not work. Sometimes you may have to rearrange or reallocate the time between the 2 chords. Maybe you stay on the 2 chord for only 1 beat out of 4. And so on. There's things that you can do. Just make sure it sounds good with the melody. All right, so I'm going to play the whole song, and I'll play the 2 5 progressions, and I'll throw in some other stuff as well, I think, and then we'll be done. last line. I'm trying to get cute here. Let me see if I can work it out. One more time. Well, don't ignore, but the last line I was playing something that has nothing at all to do with the video, but I got all the 2 5s in there, and in between the other stuff that I was trying to do with limited success. Hope you enjoyed that. This is something again that you can use with all your music. I hope you will, and I'll see you again in the future.